This podcast is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. From heating our homes and powering our vehicles to cell phones, clothing, and medical equipment, oil and natural gas makes everyday life better. North Dakota Oil and Natural Gas, advancing the possibilities. Learn more at ndpetroleumfoundation.org. Welcome to Plain Talk. I'm Rob Port. You know, usually this time of a odd-numbered year, I would be, it's crossover break in the legislature, and I'd be spending a lot of time writing about the bills that have passed and the bills that didn't pass and what each chamber, the Senate and the House in Bismarck, is likely to do with the other chamber's bills. But instead, this midway break, this crossover break, we've been talking about a situation with one lawmaker, State Representative Luke Simons. He's a Republican and member of the Bastiat Caucus from Dickinson. And his behavior over the course of years, really, has, well, it's not been good. Here to talk with me about that, and by the way, there's been numerous people who have come forward. Legislative Council had a file of complaints against Representative Simons, including things he allegedly gave an unwanted back rub at one point, making crude comments, disparaging comments towards women. There's a 14-page file that's been, I obtained via an open records request and published. There's also been accusations from another state lawmaker, Representative Emily O'Brien. She's a Republican from Grand Forks. She told me her story. I interviewed her, and it got so bad for her, she had to move across the House chamber in order to get away from Simons, who would daily feel like he needed to comment on her appearance, on her outfits, would tell her things like she must be a good secretary. There's just a lot of stuff. One thing that was revealed in the file of documents from Legislative Council was an email from State Representative Brandy Pyle. She's a Republican from Castleton, with her own experiences with Representative Simons. Representative Pyle, first of all, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yep, you're very, very welcome.
So tell me, what's it been like working with Representative Simons? I think some of the words that you used in the documents were creepy. Give us some details.
For the most part, you try to treat everybody with respect, because we're all elected officials and we're all there to do a job. But, just kind of offhand, odd comments, very uncomfortable comments have been made by Representative Simons to myself and to other lawmakers and interns when I've been present. And it's just kind of, in a sense, hard because you work hard to get there, to do the job, to do the best thing you can for the people, and to constantly kind of be undermined as a woman has been kind of bothering. It's just something that we shouldn't have to deal with, but it is.
Give me some examples of what does undermining mean?
One of the first times, and I did talk to Representative Simons about this, and he didn't remember talking about it, but we had met, and he kind of looked at me and he said, "Well, I can't believe your husband let you do this." And we have 4 kids. I left all 4 of them at home with my husband. He does a great job single parenting while I'm gone during the week, and on the weekends it's kind of chaos, just because it's trying to get everything done and having mom time and time with everybody. But when I did bring that to his attention, he did apologize. But it's just one of those things that was mentioned that, gosh darn it, does anybody else get this question, or is it just because I'm a mom, because I'm a woman? I don't know. It's just one of those things that I shouldn't be asked.
Right, it's funny that you asked that, if anybody else has been asked that, because he clearly did. He at one point there was a KFYR, former KFYR television anchor. I think she's now working in another state, and she said that Representative Simons, during the 2018 convention, she and one of her co-anchors, who also happened to be female, were sitting at a table, and Representative Simons came up and introduced himself to the male off-camera people, the cameramen, and then pointed to the two women who were sitting there and said, are you their secretaries? Are these your secretaries? And then later when I asked him about it, he told me he thought that they were dating. He also, Representative O'Brien reported also getting similar comments from Representative Simons where he said, basically something to the effect of, who's doing the laundry at home if you're here. So you weren't the only one, clearly.
Yeah. Yep. And you don't know until you kind of start visiting with other people around. One of the things that, I was thinking of bringing up that I saw in one of his interviews or something had posted on Facebook that he had records all the private conversations that he has with those women. And I guess I would be one of those women as well. I mean, I sat him down 2 Fridays ago to talk about some of his behavior in our caucus meetings that I just find very frustrating. And to be an effective legislator, we can't have those emotional explosions when, we can agree and disagree on the face mask things, but nobody else behaves that way. Nobody else is sitting and screaming and calling everybody hypocrites. And if that's the case, when we were sitting in one of the committee rooms, table apart, everything was very respectful. But then where's the recording of that? It just starts making you think, were all my conversations recorded, and why is it only female conversations being recorded? It just really makes that self-doubting record player in your head start going, and it shouldn't have to. It shouldn't happen.
The behavior in the caucus meetings. Now, for people who don't know, essentially there are there's the Republican caucus in the House, and there's the Democratic caucus, and occasionally the caucuses come together to discuss matters, and these are not open to the public, but lawmakers come, I imagine, to talk candidly about caucus business. It's not, obviously we have political parties in the legislature. That's not a secret to everybody. These meetings are ways where Republicans can try to get on the same page with one another, or discuss their differences, or try to settle things within the caucus to, further the overall Republican agenda in the legislature. And Democrats do it too. And then there's other, different caucuses, sub-caucuses, I guess you could call them, that meet as well. So what is in these meetings, which again are not open to the public, his behavior? I mean, you're saying screaming and shouting and elaborate on that. Threatening to be forcibly removed from the floor because he was refusing to wear a face mask. Those were his words. Again, we each have our own viewpoints on the whole face mask issue, but I guess it's how we choose to act and react and present ourselves, and having meaningful conversations so we can come to a conclusion, so we can vote to see what we want to do as far as our rules for the House and the Senate. But when you have that type of behavior, it disrupts everything, and it's very hard to want to work with people who continue to behave in a manner that makes it very difficult, and you don't know what's going to come out. Is he typically like that in caucus meetings, or is it just the mask issue that had him that riled up? I think at that particular one, it was just the mask issue. He is very passionate about it, understandably. I mean, politics is a very intense situation, but again, nobody else did that. But I think there's an expectation that you behave respectfully. I mean, you can be passionate without screaming at people, I guess is the point, maybe. Let's talk a little bit about what was in the file that's come out from Legislative Council. You had an email, and there was a situation. You were there. By my reading of it, there was an intern there as well, and Representative Simons made some comments. Tell that story for us.
Basically, he was saying that he was a barber and started talking about hair, and looked over at our intern and said, "Oh, I'd love to get my hands in your hair." And immediately we were both kind of uncomfortable, and he talked about the ethnicities and different hair, stuff like that. Referenced some of my old pictures that I looked like a little schoolgirl when I had bangs. it was just really uncomfortable. He kind of walked away, and the intern and I spoke a little bit. And it's, this is behavior that we have seen before. That like I don't understand why, he's been talked to many times to please stop this, behavior, because it isn't appreciated. I don't need to have stupid comments made to me. It's not funny. It's kind of it's just uncomfortable. So I ended up writing an email, and I sent it to the Legislative Council, and then I forwarded it to my leadership, just to let them know and keep everybody on the same page as to what's kind of happening. Had a conversation with our leadership. He did come and apologize, and it was after a subcommittee that I had to chair, and was like, well, if I was a gay barber or whatever, it'd be just fine if what I say.
I think the quote from the documents were, if he had tight pants and pink hair, nobody would care.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I knew it was in reference to that, so I apologize for.
No, that's I wanted to get the full, I guess, flavor, as distasteful as it is, in there. What I mean, at this point, one thing that seems to be very common throughout this is that Representative Simons will apologize. It seems like he says something, and then he'll apologize for it when someone calls him on it or is upset by it, rightfully so. I know it happened with the journalists at the 2018 convention. I know that there were instances where, he would go and apologize to members of Legislative Council staff who were feeling that they couldn't work with him anymore because of the various things that he did. I mean, at one point he was talking about liability legislation and was using an example with a legislative lawyer saying, well, would I get in trouble if I came on you in an accident and I took your shirt off? He was asking if a legislative council attorney wanted to lick a brown stain on his paperwork. Just numerous things like that. He always apologizes. It seems like someone talks to him and then he apologizes. At what point do you feel it's not just because, listen, as somebody who communicates for a living, anybody can try to tell a joke that boy, that sounded funnier in my head. Or get angry and say something that you didn't mean, or lose your cool a little bit. I think it happens to even the very best of people. At what point, after one instance after another, is it calculated? Is it not, boy, I lost my temper, or boy, I was trying to tell a joke, or I just got misunderstood, and it's just calculated?
I don't know if you can necessarily put like a number to that, but it's definitely beyond the point where the apologies are just hollow. They're just words, and I think when people apologize, it's a time for that self-reflection and a time to reevaluate their actions and their words and how they choose to communicate with people, and understand that we all communicate in different ways. We all hear things in different ways, and for him, to realize that it needed to stop. It needs to stop, and it's time.
Do you feel the House of Representatives? This is something that Emily O'Brien, when I spoke with her, that she referenced, is that at the beginning of every session there's an orientation, and part of that orientation is training, and it's on all sorts of things. You have software systems or computer networks that you need to understand how they work. You understand, how debates work on the House floor, and just all of that stuff, all that sort of infrastructure to make a legislative session work. And part of that is sexual harassment training, and also I would imagine some training on professional conduct. Do you feel like that's sufficient?
I thought it was. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's time to take a hard look at the entire process a little bit more and fully understand it. This was never anything I expected to have happen. Never thought I would have to stand up against someone of my own party. But it is time to I don't know. It's time for the behaviors to stop. It's time for the process to change. The people expect professionalism out of us. We're not going to always get along. We definitely come with different mindsets and different backgrounds and different passions.
Which is
that's
the
why
point.
We have variety.
That's the point.
Yep, that's
right?
why we have a variety of bills.
Right.
But we all have to figure it out, and maybe there's some training that we need, or something to where we do mock debates, so we can develop that craft, so that we can have more meaningful conversations, and so that we're listening with two ears and speaking with one mouth, versus the opposite of not listening.
In response to this, Representative Simons, and as well as his supporters, and right now I'm looking on my computer monitor at a rally.org page. The headline on it is "Stand with Representative Luke Simons," and both Simons and in the wording on this fundraising page and a lot of his supporters, one thing that they have been saying consistently is that these accusations against him are motivated by politics. That he's a member of the Bastiat Caucus, which is a very, I guess they describe themselves as being very conservative or true conservatives. We could probably have a debate about that. But he's saying, I have a conservative voting record, and the establishment in Bismarck, or the folks in Bismarck, the liberals don't like that, and so they're out to get me. When you hear that and you see people raising money for him now off of all of this, what's your response to that?
That's a slap in the face to all of those involved in the incidents in that 14-page document, number one. Number two, I used to go to the Bastiat Caucuses. They talked about some really interesting bills. I enjoy talking legislation. You learned a lot. I went my first session, so you get all viewpoints, and that's what I enjoyed it. And then my second session, I believe that they had paid dues, and I wasn't willing to pay. I'm a conservative. I'm cheap. I'm not going to pay $300 to join an additional group just to sit and talk what we had done the year before for free. So I stopped going, but I sit and visit with all kinds of people. But people come with their own viewpoint, and so then they're going to put in their reasonings into other people's minds. Well, they're doing this because of this, and that is not true at all. Nobody deserves to be treated the way they have been treated and continue to have been treated this way. It has been ongoing, and it's just time for it to end.
Brandy, I thank you for your time. I know there's a tough vote coming up on the legislature resumes tomorrow, Wednesday. We're recording this on March 2nd, Tuesday. What do you think? I mean, should Representative Simons be expelled? I mean, that's the question. Have you made up your mind on that yet? Do you know?
I haven't. We have to go through the entire conversation and whatever proceedings that we need to do. And just like any bill, we do our homework, we do all the reading, and we listen to the floor debates and the different perspectives, and then make the decision at that point. So I just know that when I go back, I want to be able to trust my counterparts, and know that I'm not going to be secretly recorded. I want to know that I'm not going to sit and be insulted or made fun of or have any comments. I want to go and do my work.
Brandy, thanks for your time.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you.